How far would you go to defend your beliefs, especially when the whole room is against you? That's exactly what Rand Paul faced on live television. It wasn't just a casual discussion, it was a verbal battleground. The stakes were high, and from the first word, you could feel the tension rise. On one side, Rand Paul, armed with facts and an unshakable stance. On the other, Whoopi Goldberg, determined to challenge everything he stood for. The air grew thick as the debate unfolded. It wasn't about who spoke louder, it was about who could make their case stick.
But here's the thing is, left and right have agreed in the past that regime change doesn't work. When we got rid of Hussein, we got chaos and more terrorism. When we got rid of Gaddafi, chaos and more terrorism.
But Senator, we're here now, though.
As well.
But we're here.
Yeah. We're not really here. We got 50 people. We're not
here.
doing anything.
Yeah, but frankly, 50 people
is very symbolic, and that is why it kept Turkey from invading.
You tell their parents
Isn't that true?
You tell the parents of those 50 kids how great the symbolism was when a suicide bomber blows up all 50 kids.
But didn't it keep Turkey from invading?
No, I'm not.
Gave
you tell
Turkey
their parents.
The green light.
You tell their parents why they're there.
But isn't that true?
You tell their parents why they're there.
Isn't it true that Turkey did not invade?
How do you feel about the video that we're seeing of the Kurds getting slaughtered?
I find the position of pulling out of these wars, that's a popular one, and I am there. There's a difference in having a strategy and leaving the Kurds there to die.
Socialism, taxes, foreign policy, it all came crashing into one fiery exchange. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer or gasp, and the most shocking part, this was just the beginning. What happened next not only left Whoopi furious, but sent shockwaves across the audience. Let's dive into how it all began. Rand Paul is not someone who shies away from heated debates. Known for his strong libertarian views, he's been a relentless critic of big government and what he sees as the dangers of socialism. Whether you agree with him or not, one thing's certain, he's always ready with data, sharp arguments, and a calm demeanor that cuts through even the most chaotic debates.
The case against socialism. Bernie Sanders is no longer alone on the debate stage. It seems like we're hearing more and more about socialism. In fact, 43% of Americans think it's a good thing. You are on the complete other end of that. Tell us about this book.
Of taxation in our country. Then there's Whoopi Goldberg, a household name and a co-host on The View. She's known for her passionate and often fiery takes on politics and social issues. Over the years, Whoopi has become a voice for progressive ideals, and she doesn't hold back when she feels strongly about something. Her experience in debates, combined with her quick wit, makes her a formidable opponent for anyone who steps onto her turf. When these two collided, it was clear from the start this wasn't going to be just another polite conversation. Both were ready to defend their beliefs, and the audience could feel it. It all started with a simple premise. Rand Paul joined The View to promote his book, The Case Against Socialism. But from the first question, it was obvious the hosts weren't interested in small talk. Whoopi and the panel wasted no time diving into the heart of the issue. Was socialism truly as dangerous as Rand Paul claimed?
In our country, ours is much more progressive. So we've taken the poor off of the rolls. They don't pay income tax anymore. Most people below $50,000 don't pay any income tax. The top 1% in our country pay 40%.
Our audience says that's not true.
Well, the IRS statistics say that the top 1% in our country pay 40% of the income tax, and that those making less than $50,000.
Donald Trump doesn't pay any income tax.
Conversation quickly turned toward Venezuela, with one of the hosts arguing that the country's collapse wasn't about socialism at all. Rand, unfazed, countered with examples of failed socialist policies that left millions in poverty. He explained how the promises of free healthcare and education often come at a high cost, paid directly by the working class through heavy taxes. The tension in the room was undeniable. Whoopi interrupted, challenging his points with passion. The back and forth wasn't just about facts, it was about ideology. And as the audience sat on the edge of their seats, it became clear that this debate wasn't going to simmer down anytime soon. The moment the discussion kicked off, the atmosphere grew electric. Venezuela became the centerpiece of the argument. One of the hosts insisted that its economic collapse was due to corruption, not socialism. But Rand Paul wasn't buying it. He calmly explained how socialist policies, like nationalizing industries and massive government control, stripped Venezuela's economy of innovation and led to widespread poverty.
One of the things I've always supported about President Trump is actually one of the things I liked about President Obama, that we said we were overextended, that the Iraq war was a mistake. I think it's one of the reasons President Obama beat Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton had supported the Iraq war. I still think the Iraq war, regime change in the Middle East, and these wars are senseless. So does President Trump. He doesn't want to get us involved in another Iraq war in Syria. If anything, Syria is more complicated. The other is a practical concern. You have 50 soldiers. They're talking about moving 50 soldiers. Who goes to war with 50 soldiers? You have 50 soldiers and tens of thousands of Turkish troops amassing. The Turks are also allies. The Free Syrian Army were our allies for 7 years. They're allied with...
He pointed out a striking fact. Before socialism took hold, Venezuela was one of the wealthiest nations in Latin America, rich in natural resources and brimming with potential. Now, empty shelves, skyrocketing inflation, and millions fleeing for survival. Rand used these examples to show how socialism's promises can unravel quickly, but the hosts pushed back, questioning whether such comparisons were fair. Rand doubled down, bringing up how countries like Denmark, often labeled as socialist, actually thrive on free markets. The tension mounted as Rand delivered his arguments with precision, leaving no room for doubt. And this was only the first round of the heated exchange.
I live in Miami. There's tens of thousands of Venezuelan exiles living there. You talk a lot about Venezuela in your new book. I get a lot of political ads from the Republican Party. Donald Trump has tweeted this. Many have tweeted this. If you vote for Democrats, they will turn the United States into Venezuela. Do you think that's a fair statement to make?
Well, if you vote for a socialist, you might get socialism.
Come on, don't do that. Maduro is not a socialist. He's a corrupt, murderous thug who is starving his people.
That's not true.
That's not true? Maduro's not a thug and a murderer who's starving his people.
Let's have a conversation here. Chavez was a socialist, and socialism was the economic system of Venezuela.
It's a kleptocracy. It's not socialism.
But here's the question is, they voted for socialism. They voted for, let me finish.
No, I can't let you finish. If you're going to say Maduro's not a murderous thug, I'm not letting you finish.
As the debate intensified, Whoopi Goldberg stepped in with a bold challenge. She argued that the United States is nothing like Venezuela and dismissed comparisons to socialism as fear-mongering. Rand Paul didn't flinch. He brought up Denmark again, explaining how their system works massive taxes on the middle class fund their social programs. He added that Bernie Sanders' ideas would require similar tax burdens in America, but politicians never admit that up front. The room grew even tenser when Rand dropped a hard truth. If you vote for socialism, you get socialism. This line hit hard. The crowd reacted with applause, surprising even the hosts. Whoopi, visibly irritated, questioned his broader claims about free markets versus government control. Rand stood his ground, calmly emphasizing how history has repeatedly shown the dangers of centralizing too much power in government. The interruptions became frequent, voices overlapping, but Rand didn't lose focus. The battle of words had the audience hooked, wondering how far this argument would go. The tension in the room reached its peak when Rand Paul delivered what would become the most talked about moment of the debate. As the hosts pressed him relentlessly, Rand calmly replied, "If you vote for socialism, you get socialism." The audience erupted in applause, a reaction that visibly caught Whoopi Goldberg off guard. She shot a sharp glance at the crowd, her frustration bubbling to the surface.
One of the things we learned in writing the book is a lot of people say, well, we're not for Stalin, we're not for Hitler, we're for Scandinavia. So as we were researching the book, we actually found that Bernie Sanders' form of socialism actually is unpopular, and he would never get elected to anything in Denmark. In fact, the Prime Minister of Denmark, when he heard Bernie was going around saying they were socialists, says, no, we're not socialists. We have private property, a stock exchange, we have low corporate income taxes, we don't have a minimum wage. And the big difference, and this is where the big lie comes from, Bernie says we're going to give you all this free stuff.
Rand wasn't finished. He pointed out that socialism isn't just a theory, it has real-world consequences, and they're rarely as rosy as politicians make them sound. He explained how centralized government power stifles creativity, crushes ambition, and ultimately hurts the very people it claims to protect. Whoopi tried to regain control, arguing that socialism could be implemented differently in the U.S., but Rand countered with facts about countries that tried similar experiments and failed. The crowd's reactions made it clear. This wasn't just a debate. It was a wake-up call, and everyone in the room could feel the shift in energy. With the discussion on socialism still simmering, the focus shifted to foreign policy. The hosts questioned Rand Paul's support for pulling troops out of Syria, accusing him of abandoning allies. Whoopi demanded to know if withdrawing was the right way to handle the situation. Rand, staying calm, posed a powerful counter question. Should we stay in wars forever? He explained the complexity of the Syrian conflict conflict, noting that it wasn't as simple as good versus bad. He laid out a clear point: endless wars put American soldiers in harm's way without a clear mission. Rand highlighted that many of these conflicts result in more chaos, not less. Whoopi interrupted, asking about allies left behind, but Rand responded firmly. He argued that America's responsibility is first to its people and its constitution. His point was clear: wars shouldn't be endless, and staying indefinitely isn't leadership. The intensity of this exchange left the audience silent, anticipating what would come next. The debate took another sharp turn when the hosts challenged Rand Paul on domestic policies. Sonny Hostin accused him of supporting tax cuts that only benefit the wealthy. Rand, prepared as ever, hit back with a striking fact: the top 1% of earners in the U.S. pay nearly 40% of all income taxes. Meanwhile, a significant portion of the population pays little to no income tax. His tone wasn't dismissive, it was factual and firm. Sonny wasn't convinced, arguing that the middle class is still struggling with healthcare and education costs. Rand countered with examples of countries like Denmark, where taxes on the middle class fund free programs. He explained that in those systems, workers pay up to 60% in income taxes and a 25% sales tax. Nothing is free, Rand stated, cutting through the emotional appeals with cold, hard numbers. The room felt divided. Was he right, or were the hosts justified in their frustration? One thing was certain: Rand's arguments weren't easy to dismiss. The debate reached its boiling point when Whoopi Goldberg declared, "I'm just American." She used this as a way to distance herself from partisan politics. Rand Paul, unimpressed, delivered a sharp reply: "If you're just American, maybe you should listen to ideas that don't align with your narrative. That's what true Americans do." The crowd's reaction, deafening applause. The energy shifted. Whoopi's frustration was visible as she tried to regain control of the conversation. Rand pressed on, discussing how open-mindedness is critical for political progress. He highlighted the importance of debating policies without resorting to labels or preconceived ideas.
That's a damn lie.
Wait, but
And I've got a bunch of neighbors and friends who know this. Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain. I'm a 47-year-old girl.
his new book is called The Case Against Socialism, and we'll be right.
Clearly caught off guard, struggled to counter. The audience, caught up in the intensity, seemed to hang on every word. This wasn't just a clash of ideas, it was a moment where two different worldviews collided. The tension was thick, and the room felt like it could erupt at any second. The stage was set for an unforgettable conclusion. As the segment ended, the room was left buzzing. Whoopi looked visibly rattled, while Rand Paul exited with an air of confidence. The audience reactions and viral moments that followed showed how deeply this clash resonated. It wasn't just another debate, it became a defining moment in political discourse.
For hours, somebody wakes up and says, "Oh, we're out."
Right.
Is that the right way to do this?
I think the way we look at wars, we don't look at
No. Is that the right way to do it?
Let me answer the question.
Okay.
When we decide whether or not we're sending our young people into harm's way, we should obey the Constitution, which says we should declare war and put them in a war theater. But let me finish.
Okay.
And here's the thing about it, is if you ask these people, Lindsey Graham and the Cheney war and all these warmongers that want to stay at war forever, who are we going to declare war on? They don't know who. We're going to declare war on Turkey, our ally?
Should we
the
ever
Free Syrian
walk
Army,
out
ally?
in the middle? It's like walking out.
You should never be there in the first place.
That's not the question. No, that's all good.
But see, the left agreed with
we're
me for
in
so many
there.
years. For so many years, the left agreed with me.
I am
that
neither
these
left nor right. I'm just American. I want to know, should we be taking, should we be walking out on people?